You have a folder before you that we provided for you that's got some general information about the department. I think most of you who have been here know about our 10 by 20 goal. That is that Missouri will be one of the top 10 performing states by the year 2020. Our emphasis in that area focuses on college and career readiness, early childhood education, and the topic we're talking about today, which is quality educators. We also have a little flyer in there about our flexibility waiver. We now are out from under most of the regulations of No Child Left Behind. So Missouri now has one accountability system. That is our Missouri School Improvement Program, and that is used for both state and federal accountability purposes. On the other side, you'll see a copy of the PowerPoint that we're not showing in PowerPoint form, but you have the slides, along with a brochure that lists the brief points about the educator evaluation system, and also a flash drive that has all the information, all the documents, all the forms, everything that Mr. Katnick will refer to through his presentation today. For your information, this flash drive with all of these materials was provided to every attendee at our Back to School Administrators Conference the end of July. So every school district in the state had an opportunity to get all of these materials and work with those this year through our pilot program. At this point, it's my pleasure to turn the presentation over to Mr. Paul Katnick. Paul is the interim assistant commissioner for the Office of Educator Quality. Paul is also the person who has been leading the pilot program this year on educator evaluation. I do also want to say that many of the members of the audience have been involved in both the development of this evaluation model as well as the pilot project. We've tried very hard to work collaboratively with all of our partners around the state and all of our organizations. So I would just ask if all the people representing the organizations who've been part of this would just stand so we could recognize you, please. Thanks. We have many teacher organizations, principal organizations, superintendents, school boards, and others. So with that, Paul.
Before Paul starts, I do want to make the announcement that videotaping is going to be entered more for the Missouri Chamber. She has our permission to do that.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you. I'd like to kind of start by echoing what the commissioner said, that while I have facilitated the work, there have been hundreds of educators and members of professional organizations that have contributed to what you have on your flash drive and helped, and they're helping us now to kind of refine it and make it even better. I will walk you through those slides that you have on the right side of your folder, so if you want to keep an eye on those, I'll reference those as we go along. Starting with the first page there's a study highlighted called the Widget Effect that came out in 2009. And what it explored was how effective are our evaluation systems. What is it that they do? What is it that they find? Some of the statistics they found were a little surprising, that 94% of our teachers achieved the top 2 ratings. And that 66% of the brand new teachers were even above satisfactory. And brand new teachers tend to be kind of in that growth spurt of their career. And even they were rated above, 2/3 of them were rated above in those top areas. More alarming than that is how many were not ever rated as in need of improvement, less than 1% actually. And when you ask principals and teachers about teachers in their own school, they said there's actually tenured teachers that probably are in need of performance improvement and even maybe need to be dismissed. And so the statistics that came out of the report signal to us that the evaluation systems that we currently use are really in need of some kind of improvement on their own. And that's really what drove the whole work. And so when you ask the question, you know, why would we do this? That's what drove the work. But I think even more important than that, some of the opening comments that you all made about how education is really at the heart of things, and that's why it's really important. We haven't leveraged the evaluation system in a way that we could to improve practice. And improving practice is where you improve student achievement. If we want kids to get better at their learning, we have to get adults better at their teaching and their leading. And we have an evaluation system now that we think can leverage that we think can help folks improve their practice, and that we think that'll lead to improved performance for students. So we started with the research that tells us how to do that. This starts on page 2 for you. there's 7 principles or 7 areas of research that have surfaced in the last couple of years that say if you want an evaluation system that's going to be effective at helping the adults in the profession get better, these are the kind of things that you need to pay attention to. For us, these kind of fell into 2 different camps, if you will. One talks about the structure of the evaluation process. And so there's 3 of those there you'll see. One of them is that, whatever it is that you're evaluating, it's tied to research. So when we look at a teacher's performance or a principal's, we want to make sure that it links to research somewhere that says this is effective for kids learning. So that's the first one. The second one talks about differentiated levels. When I first started teaching, I was kind of on a binary system where I was good, bad, satisfactory, unsatisfactory, but it was just kind of 2 levels. The research says you really need differentiated levels. You need kind of a roadmap for how to get better. And then the third one talks about the use of results themselves. Not only do we make determinations about people's employment, but the results of the evaluation results ought to help guide us in terms of our policy. Who are the assets in our district? Who are the folks that need a little extra help and support? What kinds of professional development needs are there kind of across the board? And so the idea is the results tell us more than just what you're going to do with these people next year. Now the 4 down below that are less about structure and more about process. So this has to do with the way you actually conduct the evaluation. And so there's 4 items there, and the first one you'll see down there talks about the use of student growth measures as part of that. What that does is it asks the question, how are the kids doing? So an adult who's in charge of teaching a classroom full of kids, we want to ask the question, how are the kids under this adult's care? How are they actually doing? How's their learning going? They said that has to be included. They say you also have to include meaningful feedback. It has to be more than just putting a form in the teacher's box saying, here's what I found, sign it please. It's got to be talking about, here's what we saw happening, here's ways that you can get better. So it talked about the feedback part of it. It talked also about the training, and that folks on both sides of the instrument have to understand exactly how the process works, right? And then it also talked too about the probationary period, and the fact that novice educators are kind of in a different world than the more experienced ones, and that evaluation systems ought to be kind of different for both. They shouldn't measure performance of both of those educators kind of the same way. So we use that research to drive the system that we built, and you'll see a picture of that down on that page as well. All of these components, so these are the ones that are on your flash drive. All of these components are what we put together in what we've called the evaluation system. We call it a system because it isn't just teacher evaluation, it's not just principal evaluation or superintendent, it's the 3 combined. The idea that if you really want to help kids in a district improve their learning, you really need everybody from the board and the superintendent's office right down to the classroom working on the same priorities, the same needs, and that the evaluation process can be that leverage point that gets everybody kind of pulling in the same direction, working for the same goals. So that's why we call it a system. We wanted to put all these together. And one of the most important parts of this, I think, is the last one down there. It's called the Research and Proven Practices section. What the research told us is that we had systems that identified if people were good or bad sometimes, but we gave them no roadmap on how to improve. And so what we've included here is research that says if you're working on a particular performance indicator, here's research that's helpful to you. Here's things that you can try tomorrow to improve your practice. We wanted to make sure that was embedded in there. Tying the PD together with the evaluation closely is where we think we would get our best gains. If you look on the next page, one of the highlights of our system is a continuum. You'll notice that this stretches all the way from candidate on through distinguished. The candidate column was very important to us because we think the preparation of our administrators and our teachers is as important as the practice. So we need our institutions across the state to be preparing someone who can walk into a classroom, walk into a building and be successful at leading and teaching. And then the K-12 world picks it up from there and continues that growth and development. But we wanted to tie them together, and we wanted to make sure that the bullseye for this was all the same thing. That our preparation folks and our K-12 folks all agreed on what good teaching looked like. And so the continuum kind of summarizes that for you. What's key about the continuum is that each particular level, it's driven by evidence. So when we make a determination of someone at one particular level or another, it's based on the evidence of practice that we're looking at. And so if you look down at the bottom of that page, the way we grouped our evidence was into 3 professional frames. One of them looks at the commitment, and this is kind of the quality part of the person. In other words, are they credentialed to teach what they're supposed to teach? Do they do the kind of preparation that's necessary to deliver lessons that work for all students? The second one is on practice, and so if you and I sat in the corner of a classroom and were watching what was happening, we'd be looking only at the adult, and the evidence we'd be gathering is about the adult behaviors and what they're doing, the way they establish rapport with their students, how they communicate the learning objective, the kind of strategies that they use. But it's going to be adult evidence. And then the third one is on impact. And this one says, given the preparation, given the delivery of content, did the kids get it? Did they get it? Can they apply it? And it's our belief that these three work independently, interdependently together, that you really need all three working together, and that you measure all three, and that's how you make your determination of whether someone is effective at what they're doing. And so the other thing that it'll let you do is let you get very, very focused on where improvement needs to happen. Another way to look at this, and this continues on page 4 for you, another way to look at this kind of balance of evidence is in terms of triangulation of data. And all we're saying here is that you put this data together to form trends or patterns about what you think this person's performance is. We were very pleased, and one of the most comprehensive studies of its time that came out just last week by the Measurements of Effective Teaching MET project was released last week, and one of the things that they emphasized was the need for balanced evidence. I think their quote went this way, that a balance of evidence like we do with our three frames maintains considerable predictive power, increases reliability, and potentially avoids the unintended negative consequences that comes from assigning too heavy of weights to certain pieces of evidence. So it keeps it balanced, and we're trying to grow the entire teacher, the entire leader in all aspects of their practice. So let me tell you a little bit about the pilot project that's going on right now. You'll see there the list of districts that we have included and where they come from. You'll notice that they're from every region of the state. We have 104 total now. A couple of charter schools are in there. Our largest district in the state is one of our pilots, as well as one of our very smallest pre-K districts is there. If you add up kind of all the certified staff, it represents about 21,000 teachers, which is approximately 30%. It also represents 240,000 students, which is between 26 and 28% of the students in the state. A lot of diversity between these districts, not only in their geography and their sizes, but also in their performance. One of our districts on that list has 0% minority, another one has over 99% minority. One of them has only 16% free and reduced lunches, others have over 96% free and reduced lunches. And even as we look at their student performance, we get great diversity. From districts who only earned 40% or so of the possible points on our new Missouri School Improvement process and would be unaccredited, to ones who earned all 100% of the points and would be fully accredited. And all that's to say is that the group that's helping us with the pilot is very representative of the state as a whole. If you go on to the next page, not only are our districts diverse and represent the entire state, but the teachers that are in the pilot are as well. You can see there we have over 5,000 or 4,000 years of experience reflected by the teachers in our pilot. They range anywhere from someone who's been in the profession about 6 months to someone who's been at it for 36 years. Our average teacher is about 9.5. It covers all grade levels, pre-K through 12. And then you'll notice the content areas down there. Virtually every single content level and grade level is represented by the teachers in the pilot. And again, what's important about this is that we want to make sure that whatever we finish with in terms of a model that helps improve practice, that it works in every single classroom for every single student. So it was really important for us to set up a pilot that represented every kind of teacher there is out there. And what those pilot projects are doing is helping us refine the system that we've put together to make sure that it works in the ways that it's supposed to work, and also to affirm that the way the pilot works is it moves them across that continuum. When we move to the right on that continuum, we know that the adult has increased their expertise in whatever performance indicator we're talking about. And when that happens, it brings with it the impact at the student level. In other words, it gets the results that we want to see happen at the student level. So I'd like to finish just kind of showing you the timeline of kind of where we're at. As the commissioner mentioned, the rollout of all this information happened at the administrators conference. That was the summer behind us. And then after that, simultaneously, 3 different efforts got underway. One of them was the pilot project that we've been talking about. We've been signing up districts and they've been testing different indicators for us. We also hosted regional orientation meetings this past fall, where we met with over 400 of the districts throughout the state and talked to them about these kinds of issues, talked to them about the research, But then we also sat down with them and had them review their local evaluation process right now that they're using against that research to see how well it aligned, and to begin thinking about, well, how do we make our local system better? Because our districts have an option of adopting the state model, but if they don't, they still have to pay attention to the research, because it's the research that drives effective evaluation. And then the other thing that we're doing that you'll see on the timeline there is developing guidelines. As you recall, when we looked at the research, 4 of those were about process, and we think those are going to be the ones that are more challenging for districts than the others. And so we're creating guidelines that fully explains those 4 areas and provides them some technical assistance in how we help them. It'll drive the training, in other words, that we provide them. And then you can see at the far right of the timeline, we're looking at this summer having all this work done, and then we'll move kind of into the next phase of helping districts begin to really increase the effectiveness of the evaluation that they do at the local level.
Great.